Hello, everybody. You're here with me, Virginia, your host. And this is a branch of the Fashion Photography Podcast. And it's something new, something that we're doing for the quarantine. However, if you really like it, we might keep it for everyone. Oh, that was my phone signaling, giving me signals that the live has started. So I'm very happy to know that you're here with us today. It's really important for us to know that this is a discussion. And if you're like, well, what's the Fashion Photography Podcast? Let me tell you what it is exactly. So, this is the place where you can find everything you want and everything you need about your photography business. So, there are episodes with different creators. And on top of that, there are Friday episodes where I'm sharing with you some tips on tricks on photography. You can see the team, you can see the different episodes on photographypodcast.net. So, as I said, every Wednesday we're here with a guest, and every other Friday I'm answering some of your questions. So, if you have questions today, what's very important is to write them down right next to the video that you're seeing today. So if you're there, please let me know whether you can hear us or see us, which both of these are very important. And I'm very, very happy to tell you that one of our guests today, actually the only guest of today's episode, is one of our guests on the podcast. So you can also hear her interview on the Fashion Photography Podcast. And I'm very happy to share with you who's my guest today. And let's welcome her.
Hi,
Hello, Rossella.
everyone. My
So,
name is Rossella Vanon. Hi.
awesome. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about you?
Sure. Well, my name is Ursula Vanon. I am a beauty and fashion photographer based in the UK. And I'm really pleased to be here. I really enjoyed our podcast interview. So I am sure I'm going to enjoy today. So I really look forward to it.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. I can see that people are already looking at the live. Hello, Francesco. Hello, George. And today, what we're going to do is to talk about some of your photo shoots, right? In particular, we're going to go over them, the process of creation, and what happens after the photograph is already made, right?
Yes, I mean the actual taking the picture part of the process is actually very short compared to everything that goes on before and what happens
Absolutely.
after. So, and also that's the part that people don't really get to see unless maybe you are assisting someone specifically, because obviously you've been on your own shoot, but obviously other photographers usually are not on other photographers' shoots, and so I find that interesting to share.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got our first question for the audience today. And the question is, where are you guys based? Tell us in the comments. And I would like to remind you that you can also share this live with all of your friends. You can share it everywhere. Share it on Instagram, Facebook, whatever you like. So, there are some exciting things that I'm going to tell you at the end of this interview, and we're also going to reveal who is going to be the next guest. So it's very important for you to stay throughout the whole episode with us. And now, Rosella, do you want to start showing us what do you have for us today? I'm super excited.
Sure, let's have a look at the image that we've got. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
So this is only one of the images, but this image is obviously part of a shoot. So these are other shots from that same series. Going back down, there's this. So this is obviously one shoot, and the reason why I have selected this shoot to talk about actually is because This shoot, first of all, actually, a couple of reasons. One reason is actually this shoot, I feel like is one of the most representative of my tastes in my portfolio. Although it's not the most recent one that I've got, but it's a shoot that I feel very connected to. I feel like really reflects my taste. So I will probably hold on to this shoot for the next 20 years in my portfolio, probably, like I tend to do when I really, really feel a shoot. And I also feel like this shoot, because it started as a personal project, with in mind the idea that I might want to see it in a magazine, but it wasn't commissioned by a magazine. I also wanted to talk about it because I know that a lot of photographers wonder, they are trying to make it into the editorial world, and they wonder if all shoots should be commissioned, and how do you actually get into publications, what the process should be, if you always need to be commissioned, if you can go other ways, and this is one of those other ways. So I thought that it may be interesting to talk about. It is also a shoot where I had a lot of saying, obviously, because this was my idea, and it was I was heavily involved in the creation process of the shoot. So I made, I think, I don't know how many mood boards for this. I'm a mood boarder. I mood board everything, but for this one in particular, I think I gave it my all. I made even more mood boards than what I usually do, and I found it to be really helpful. So obviously I'd like to touch on that. And there's been so much preparation leading up to this shoot, and it's key to the success of the shoot. So that's another thing that's another reason why I wanted to talk about this shoot in particular.
Okay, just to break it down for the people that are listening to and also looking at us right now, it's so awkward for me because it's not a podcast. So I'm always like, if you're listening to us, however, today you get the chance to also look at us. So guys, I'm very happy to see that you're active in the comments. I wasn't able to see where you guys all based, but until you write it down in the comments, I would like to break down for you what it means to be commissioned by a magazine and what it means to do a passion project, something that you do for your own sake. That's how I'm usually explaining this. So to be commissioned from a magazine means that they are assigning you a project for their future issue, or this could be an editorial, this could be just a couple of photos or something like that, if you're illustrating something in particular, like let's say an article. So if you're a commissioned photographer, you're usually contacted by the magazine, first of all, and secondly, they're giving you exactly the frame. What are you supposed to do? In addition to that, you're most likely receiving a stylist or makeup, or even maybe makeup artist recommended by the magazine. And when you're done with a project, you are usually paid for this. However, if you do a personal project, this could be meant for your own sake, as I said, because you want to just show your artistic ways and show to the people what you're capable of. However, ooh, I've got to stop my vibration. Okay, however, you can submit your project to a magazine, to an editor or something like that, and they can feature you in their magazine. So Rossella, we've got the second option here, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so you can tell us a lot today. You can tell us how to approach a magazine. You can tell us how to develop a project like this. And I've got my very first question for you. And it is, when you started doing this project of yours, were you considering a magazine at all?
So that is a great question. And that is actually where I was going to start as well. So we are telepathic. Yes, absolutely. So this is the thing that, we can work on personal projects and without any magazine in mind, and it's fine. And, it's obviously we create something that is going to work in our portfolio, or just something that we want just for the sake of it. And that's great. But obviously that doesn't mean, and we're probably not giving the shoot as many chances as it could to actually make it into any publication, because it's just kind of a random test shoot, basically. So the way I shoot a lot of my own projects and then send them out. And the reason the reason why I do it is because I like to create work that I see fit in my website first of all. So I have these ideas and I think they will look really good. First of all, I'm really passionate about it and I want to shoot it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I think it will work really great on my website and my clients will be attracted by it. And so I could get some paid work coming from having this shoot on my site. The third thing is on top of this, I could actually get the interest of publications and get them involved, which is great for your for your client list. It is great for your commercial clients because they are attracted by the fact that photographers have worked for in editorials for great publications. So there's a number of reasons, but keeping in mind the aim of the shoot is important. So that there is always an aim. So sometimes you shoot for a magazine, although you're not commissioned by the magazine, like you've explained. So you keep the magazine in mind. Other times you just shoot for your portfolio, but there's still something to keep in mind. You still have to keep in mind what kind of shoot would sit well in your portfolio, and you're not just randomly shooting anything that just comes in your mind. So this, for this shoot, I had both things in mind. My portfolio, because no matter what happens with magazines, even if they're not interested, I know for a fact that this shoot ends up in my portfolio. So that is my priority for personal projects. But the second thing is if I can keep in mind the visuals of the publications that I think would be interested in this theme, in the way that I'm envisioning this shoot. And if I can keep this in mind, if I can keep the way their editorials are, if I can keep an editorial spread in mind, how many looks I need to make it into an editorial, what kind of variety I need to make it into an editorial, and incorporate it in the shoot, then I have many more chances of actually seeing this shoot published. So that is essential, to actually make it into the magazine.
Awesome. And I'm very, very sure that there is a way to explain this to your colleagues, the people that you're working with. So in this case, it's probably a model and
Mhm.
a makeup artist. Did you have a specific stylist for this particular photo shoot?
Yes, we had a stylist, we had makeup artist, hairstylist, a model, we had a nail stylist, yes, and we had a prop stylist, and I had an assistant.
Okay, so there are many people involved.
Yeah.
How do you explain to them whether this is a personal project or it's for a magazine?
Yeah, that is another great question. It is a fine line because, of course, I want the best people, of course, and I'm thankful because I'm surrounded by great artists that I've come across during the years, and we've collaborated. So the thing is, when you get in touch with people that you've already worked with and collaborated with, there is this trust that builds up, with time. So that if I have told them once that, this shoot, although, there's no commissioning letter, I would really do my best to send it to magazines, and then we got published in, I don't know, Elle that way. That obviously builds a certain level of trust. So I was obviously able to work with such people, with people that I worked with before, although I never worked with a couple of people on this shoot. There were a couple of new people as well. They were great. And I always say that there is no magazine involved. Obviously, I have to be clear from the get-go. So I say that there is no magazine involved. However, I am hoping that these images will make it into, and I give specific names for the magazines that I'm targeting so that they know what to expect. But they are also aware that there is no guarantee that these images will make it. It depends on everybody's work on the day. It depends on how the shoot goes. It depends on whether the magazine has a slot or whether they're full for the next 6 months. What kind of season you're shooting for, how long in advance, so many things. So I just make it clear with everybody, even the model agency, everybody knows that this is meant as a personal project, but they would need to be on board with the idea that to be happy with the fact also that this could make it into a magazine, basically.
I'm sure they're happy every time when it makes it to a magazine.
Yes, that's usually not an issue.
I feel like I'm asking too many questions, and people are a little bit fed up with questions. However, if you guys have any, don't be shy, ask away in the comments, because that's the whole idea of having a live situation over here.
Yeah,
So me and Rosella, we are both risking parrots to be screaming because I've got a parrot. She
I've got a
has a
baby.
kid. Yeah, so like we are in this risky situation just for you so that you can ask questions. So don't be shy, ask away in the comments. And what I wanted to ask you is, have you ever had a situation when you are like, well, I just want to post this shoot. I don't want to offer it to any magazines. I just want to post it.
Yes, I mean, there are times where you have maybe not shot something for some time because, or actually, I mean, you always shoot, but there are times where maybe you've done commercial work, for instance, and it is not all commercial work I share. For instance, it depends
Yeah.
on whether it, reflects my style and how I like the model and all choices that maybe I didn't have anything to do with, or also other times where you've shot a lot of editorials and you're all waiting for them to be published for months and months and months. So you have no
Yeah.
new content to share. So that is when I would usually say, okay, let's do a shoot, and this is a test. It's a test. And people who know me, they always double check. Is it a test, or you're going to send it to magazines? Because that's usually the way I work. I said no. This is a test, and then we. So that it's got a quick turnaround, and sometimes you need it, and this is what usually people who take part are interested in as well, to have good images. And yes, you don't have the publication name associated with them, but they go on social media, they can go straight away, they can go in their portfolios if they got a client meeting next week and they've got a specific type of new work to show them. So that is important too.
I think the best part about projects like this is simply because you're showing it, and potential clients are able to see this work, and they're calling straight away after the publication. And it's just so obvious why they have called. So every time I do this, I always have new clients or old returning clients. And for me, it's so important to have more and more new content just for social media. So
Absolutely.
I think that's also a very important part. The team is always very happy when you can submit also this work for magazines, and that's great. But the fact is, we're photographers and we rely on repeating clients over and over again. So I think for me personally, it's much more important to have clients than to have publications. I'm not
Mhm.
saying any of those are bad. I like them both. However, it's more important for me to have clients.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go over the shoot. What do you think about that?
absolutely.
It's been a while. I think we can do it now. Steve has a question. There are hundreds of magazines. How do you make sure you stand out? I love the question.
Oh, that's that. How do you make sure you stand out? Okay, so I assume that you're asking, how do you make your work stand out when you propose your work to magazines? Is that what you're asking, Steve? And by the
I
way,
think
hi,
so.
Steve. I know Steve, so hi, Steve. I
Oh,
hope you're well.
awesome. Welcome.
I mean, there are hundreds of magazines, there are millions of photographers. So it is
True.
true. I mean, as a photographer, you have to pick the right magazine. This is the first thing. You have to pick the right magazine that suits your style. And it's not about trying to change your style to make it into a magazine, because that won't work. So,
Absolutely.
because also one of the things that magazine will do, especially if you commission, if you're hoping for a commission letter, you can send any mood board you want to the magazine, but the magazine will, before commissioning you, will go and have a good look at your website. And if your work doesn't match with their aesthetic, obviously you're not going to get commissioned. So choosing the magazine that has got an aesthetic that is extremely similar to the one that you've already by default have on your portfolio will give you much higher chances to be noticed and to be commissioned. But also it's really important to shoot keeping in mind this aesthetic that the magazine has once you have picked one, and then approaching them in the right way after the shoot. If you are shooting something that is not commissioned, the magazine is not involved at any point up until when the images are all finished, all done, all retouched, and you send them an email and just kind of tell them, this is what I've done. What do you think? Have you got a space for them? Are you interested? And up until that point, it's all you. It's you and your team. So I guess one of the ways to maybe not stand out as such, but to make sure that you increase your chances of publication is definitely to be on top of the art direction, because you as the photographer are the one who is aware of the magazines. You are aware of which magazine suits your style best and what they like and the type of aesthetic that they have. So being on top of the art direction with the mood boards, with coordinating the team on the day is key to make sure that you end up with a product that, in the end does suit the publication, even after the shoot. And is true to the initial mood board that you made, because you can make a mood board, but sometimes on the day of the shoot, things can go different directions. That it could be something that doesn't work and you have to change it. It could be a problem with the wardrobe, with the lighting, or different people within the team could have different suggestions, and it's sometimes difficult to stay on top to make sure that everybody has a say, and you obviously listen to everybody's opinions, because a hairstylist would know hair trends so much better than I do. But you are also the one who knows the magazine. You know how you're going to retouch it. You know how, the whole story is going to be in your head. You kind of already know. So that is another thing. So there's so many components. It's really difficult to say what's more important, actually.
There are really many components because, for example, even if you've got the greatest work out there and you're an amazing photographer, you've gathered the perfect team and you have amazing idea, if even your the headline of your email is not right, no one is going to open your email.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, there are many, many components to that. And I'm happy to say that in the Fashion Photography Podcast, we cover a lot of this, even with in different episodes. So there are little bits to that, basically in every episode. But what I usually say is that photography is, the whole thing is like a house. It's a huge house without escalator, without elevator. You cannot take just one floor running through the steps. You've got to take them one by one. You can skip a step or two. However, you need to walk through the different floors, and it takes time. It is very time consuming. However, you need to do each and every step by yourself, because otherwise you won't know how to approach your next project. You won't know how to reach out to your next client. So it's very important to take your time and don't hurry with this. I think it's truly important to know that if today you're reaching out to this and this magazine, if you're doing it right, even if it doesn't happen the way you want it, if you take the time to analyze the situation, tomorrow when you're reaching out to a higher magazine, you will know what to do in a proper way, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I can see more and more comments in the comment section, and I love that. But let's start with the photo shoot, and I'm gonna ask the questions from the comments while we're watching the photo shoot. Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. We are able to see your screen now, so
fantastic. Well, let me know if yes, go ahead.
You can tell us how the whole idea started. I think this is a good point.
Yeah, sure. Well, the idea on this shoot mainly revolved around colors, actually. So the idea behind it was simple. I love flowers. I love to shoot with flowers, and I wanted to create a spring themed editorial that had flowers in, but not just flowers. Color was really important. So in fact, it was the whole thing. The thing revolved around color. So flowers were just a prop, really, but the thing was mainly color combinations, color palette. So that was the idea behind the shoot. So the kind of general guidelines are actually fairly vague. The initial mood board was quite generic. And then this is the kind of mood board, the kind of bullet points that I would send initially to model agencies and to makeup artists to find out who wants to collaborate on this project and so forth. And then together for instance, with the makeup artist who accepts to be on the shoot, with the hairstylist who wants to be on the shoot, and the styling and so forth, we then dive a little bit deeper into what makeup should be there, what styling should be there. And I had a really strong idea for how I wanted the styling to be. I wanted it to be really revolving around pastel tones, and I knew I wanted to use a color gel in the lighting, but in a very subtle way, which is one of my favorite things to do. And I knew that I wanted to use flowers to complement the colors of the styling and the color of the background and the makeup and so forth. So there was a lot of mood boards for this reason, because the styling had to be obviously in a certain style, but also a certain color. The makeup, a certain style, but a certain color, and colors were key. So there were a lot of mood boards, like I initially mentioned. And I think that is one of the best things that you can do before a shoot, personally.
So let's say for the people that are a bit new to the business, what's a mood board and how they can create it?
Of course. A mood board is it can just be a JPEG file, like a PDF file. Some people even like to do it on actual paper. So just take a piece of paper and you basically go and collect images, text, little quick bullet points. Then the mood board is supposed to be a kind of a visual sum up, visual summary of what you envision the shoot to be like. So for instance, for me, when I create a mood board, I will do it in Photoshop. I just create an A4 sized white, canvas. And then I would go and research online in places like Google, but especially Pinterest actually is really good. Sometimes, yes, sometimes even Instagram. And I will go and look for certain keywords, and I will type in, I don't know, flowers or spring makeup or pastel shoot or a lot of things, and not necessarily flower pastel shoot, because then I will see everything that's already been done before, and that is not what I want to do. I want to create something that is my own, and I don't want to feel too influenced by other imagery on that exact same theme that I see online. Mm-hmm. And then you take the images that more reflect the way you see the shoot to be. For instance, I knew this was going to be in a studio, so I wasn't going to go and pick an image with a model in the middle of a meadow, because that wouldn't be representative of the shoot that I wanted to do. Maybe I put some images of that are maybe references of the makeup that I want to do, and then images that are references of the actual vibe that I want the shoot to have. Anything that I think relates to the shoot, I put it in this, JPEG file. At the bottom, I put some bullet points where I just really briefly explain that I'm envisioning this to be a, I don't know, spring, summer, 2020 shoot, beauty shoot. And I maybe write another bullet point where I explain that this is going to be a pastel makeup beauty shoot. So I emphasize what the shoot will actually focus on, which is makeup in this case, although there's hair and styling, but the focus was makeup. And a couple other bullet points if I want to, one models, multiple models, studio, location, and so forth. So whoever sees this mood board at first glance, they should be able to more or less get an idea of what the finished product may be looking like. Obviously, that doesn't mean that you will end up with a shoot that really matches any really of those images that you've put in your mood board, but overall it needs to give that vibe that your final shoot is likely to have.
Like an inspiration for your team. I think that's very important. I do something similar to what you're doing, but I do it in different pages and just make sure that everybody in the team receives the whole thing, if it's a PDF or something. And then I'm going to send as a JPEG the page of the particular person. Like if I have a whole team with hairstylists, stylists, and so on, and makeup artist, I'm going to send the whole thing And then to the makeup artist, I'm going to repeat, adjust the JPEG with the makeup to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing on the day of the photo shoot.
Yeah, I do a generic mood board, and I use this to just to send out to people just to find out who wants to be on the shoot. When I then have a team and I have I have a model and I know what she looks like, and I have a makeup artist and I have a hairstylist, then I make one mood board each for these people. So I will make one mood board only for makeup, and this mood board is going to have all of the different makeup looks and exactly how many makeup changes I'm planning on having and ideas for all these makeup changes, and then maybe a color palette idea for the makeup, and then I will do another one for the hairstylist. And on this shoot, I did one for makeup, one for hair, one for styling, one for flowers, one for posing, and one for lighting. And plus, I had the general one, so I ended up with 7 mood boards.
Wow.
But I like this because I like to know that I have done all I could before I step on set to convey my idea as best as I can to all the other people who don't live in my brain, so that when we step in the studio, we know exactly what we are doing. So although, of course, we don't exactly know in the morning of the shoot what clothes we're going to have, we didn't even know which flowers we were going to get, at 6 o'clock at the flower market. So you just don't know. So a lot of things need to be still thought on the spot. And that's what makes it fun also. But at least you kind of have a really good solid starting point so that everybody knows, everybody's ready to work, everybody knows what they're doing. And then there is this little, not that little sometimes, but kind of variables that, depending on what happens with styling and props and model, and if she comes, if she's ill or, whatever happens, then you have to still think on your feet and adapt to.
Yeah, but I think the whole thing with the mood board and every little part of the preparation before that is also very important, because when you're doing projects like this, projects for yourself, you're gaining this amazing experience. And I think it's awesome because once you go on a project with a client, you'll be very prepared. And there is no
Absolutely.
client who are gonna miss that. They're
No.
all going to be like, wow, this photo shoot was so amazing. Everything was thought through, which is always amazing. We are running on time, though I love talking to you, but let's go to the photo shoot. And maybe you can also answer Christian's question, which is, how do you feed your inspiration? It's a gorgeous question. Thank you.
Wow, that is a question and a half. Let me think. How I fit my inspiration. So I feel like I'm very inspired. So the more I work, the more inspired I tend to be. So the more I shoot, the more inspired I am. So
Same
one way for me to keep inspired is to shoot. But not all shoots are the same, and clients are obviously the core of what we do. We, at the end of the day, it's a job, so we have to get money coming in, and working with clients is great, can be extremely rewarding, and it's fantastic. But for me, what really gives my inspiration a boost is personal work. It's personal work that either turns into editorial or it doesn't, just personal work. Commissioned editorials are great and they can be fantastic, but I find that for me, specifically, if I can work on my idea, that really makes me very excited. It makes me very creative, and I feel like I need these shoots, throughout the year or throughout the month.
I think everybody has. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great because these are the shoots also that give you the most chances to network with new people, try new lighting setups, and really almost step out of your comfort zone. So I think they're great, not just for creativity, but because technically you can push your limits a little bit further. You can experiment, try new things, and then take these things with you into the commission shoots, where you wouldn't just go necessarily try something new. But since you've tried it on a personal shoot, now you can go and take this knowledge with you into the paid work.
Absolutely. I love your answer. I completely agree with it. So I've got a question for you. What was the most difficult part for you in this project of yours?
I think
Tough
that
questions today, yeah.
honestly, I'm mind blown. I think that actually one of the hardest parts for me is on the shoot. Um, that fine line between listening to everybody's opinions, but being able to say no when you think that these suggestions that could come from your team could take the shoot in a direction that the shoot is not meant to go towards. So for instance, if the makeup artist suggests to do something with the makeup that you don't see fit the magazine that you have in mind, or you don't see actually working well in your portfolio, or something that you haven't agreed to, something that wasn't in the mood board. So if things, because obviously everybody's going to have different opinions and different ideas and different tastes, and this is why I like to send as many mood boards as possible. This is another reason, because then people know as much as possible exactly what it is that we're after. So in a way, there isn't it almost never happens that you end up on a shoot where people have misunderstood what you wanted and they try and do something else, and then they get upset because they wanted to do this thing, but you're telling them that it doesn't work. Like that situation is what you don't want to get. So the more mood boards you make, and the more chances there are that actually things go your plan, because it is clear what everybody is doing. And obviously the mood boards are also a product of back and forth with makeup artists, hairstylists. I don't want to make it sound like I'm super bossy and I'm just telling everybody what to do, but in a way you kind of, there needs to be someone that is on top of the art direction, because if everybody is, then that is a
It would
problem
be a mess.
also.
Yeah.
That is the best way to sum it up. It would be a mess. And so there needs to be brainstorming, but the brainstorming needs to happen before, so that then you come up with an idea, everybody sticks to that, everybody agrees to that, everybody loves that, and then on the shoot everything flows. So for me the hardest part is that even if you've done this and you step in the studio, and then maybe someone suggests something, or maybe the model, I don't know, isn't feeling it, is being is having that strength to and not wanting to please everybody, but having that strength to sometimes say no, we can do this, we will do it next time, but right now we have to concentrate on this, we've got a mood board and we have to stick to it.
Have you guys ever been in a situation like this? Tell us in the comments. If so, and how did you react? What did you say? I think it's very important to know what to say in a situation like this. And while you're answering, let's go back to the photo shoot. And this time I'm not asking any questions. I'm just letting you tell us more about the photo shoot. And if people are just listening to this right now, they can all go to the Fashion Photography Podcast account on YouTube.
Yeah. So what I like to tell you is, I mentioned all of the mood boards and, all of that. What has happened after is that, of course, everybody kind of knew what each person was doing. But like I said, there are always things that are up to chance in a way. For instance, you never know which clothes you're going to get either until the day before or the day of the shoot. And if your shoot is fashion, of course, this is obviously is key. In my case, it wasn't. It was a beauty shoot, so there was always the option of photographing the subject without clothes on, just neck and shoulders, for instance, without having any wardrobe in. But I really saw styling being a big part of this shoot, so I was really committed to trying to get a wardrobe that worked, because I wanted this shoot to look really full and really romantic and really, really pastely. And the colors obviously play a big part, and the styling really helps with the colors too. But that was a big question mark. So we got
Mm-hmm.
in the studio in the morning, and the stylist came with all the clothes. So what we did was put all the clothes on an open kind of hanger, kind of rack, and we took it into the main part of the studio, where we had also gotten all the flowers arranged in vases. And I had a prop stylist for this, my friend, and she was great. Obviously there was a mood board for her. However, because I'm not a florist, and I'm not that great with what flowers are in season throughout the year, I
Me
made a
neither.
lovely exactly. But I'm so passionate about shooting with flowers. Maybe I should get like a
I
small,
love
like a
it.
diploma in like, I don't even know how you call it, but I should get
Yeah.
more information. But basically, I made this lovely mood board, and it was all about the colors of the flowers, obviously the shapes of the flowers too, and I was planning where to put them around the subject. And I didn't realize that most of the flowers that I was picking we're not in season.
Oh
So
no.
basically, and also, even if they are, you don't know what's available at the market when you go. So then the prop stylist went to the flower market at 6 o'clock in the morning. So as she was there, and I was about to go to the studio, and she was WhatsApping me all of the pictures of the flowers to ask me, what do you think of these? What do you think of that? So we were choosing flowers over WhatsApp. And then we got to the studio, and she showed me what she got, and she had amazing things, but they were not obviously the flowers that we had planned, which is very difficult to aim for anyway, unless you grow your own. And also the styling obviously was a styling that was also not the same as the mood board, because how is it possible for it to be the same as the mood board? So we had these two giant variables on the day. So we got the flowers there, we got the clothes there, and we put everything in front of the backdrop, just as still life. And we were trying to figure out the combinations of clothes with flowers, with a certain color backdrop, which obviously we used the same one throughout, but we had to pick one in the first place. And then based on which clothes we were planning on using, which specific flowers, then we planned the makeup around that. So it was like a giant puzzle that happened in the morning. So for as much planning that we've done, there's always this question mark.
Yes, but you've managed to work it out in a fantastic way.
Thank you so much. That's lovely of you.
We're receiving some hellos there from the audience, and there is a question coming from Francesco. How many looks do you usually shoot for a beauty editorial, and how much time do you receive for hair and makeup? I can tell you, Francesco is like the end of the world. They're doing the makeup like forever. Sorry to say that. Oh, for each look. And finally, how many images do you take for each look?
Great question. So let's say a beauty editorial, magazines tend to like, for a full beauty editorial, normally 6 looks is a really good number. Some magazines will run less. Some magazines will run maybe 3 looks
8.
and then have text and products and have your images and then a picture of the still life in the product, and have an article about the beauty and that specific style next to it. So you can still have a 6-8-page editorial with 3 or 4 images, so 3 or 4 different looks. Other magazines like to run all 6. I've never shot, I shoot more than 6, but I've never had more than 6 published. So normally I would shoot 7. And I do this because chances are that there will be one of these looks that doesn't work as well as the others in the series. So I want to give myself the room to eventually take one out and still have a really strong full 6 look beauty editorial.
Mm-hmm. I usually shoot 8.
Great.
But because of the social media, sometimes I do 9, just to make sure that while I'm waiting, maybe 3 of them are going to be a little bit different. And while I'm waiting for the publication, I can at least use parts of the images and make sure that I have content for social media.
That's
That's
great. Yeah.
awesome. And how many images do you take for each look?
I would normally choose maybe 2, I think 2 that I retouch per look. And the retouching on beauty, the retouching that I like is quite in depth. So it would take some time to get to the point where I am 100% happy with a retouched image for beauty editorial. So I will pick two. And that is only because if I'm sending it to a magazine, I want to send them the option. So if it's for myself, I'll probably just pick my favorite per look. So I would
And be
end
done
up
with
with
the
six.
retouching.
Say again, sorry?
And be done with the retouching.
And be done with the retouching. Exactly. So yes, if it's for myself, I know what I like. I don't need more than one per look, and I would just edit, one each. Maybe in the future, if I want, and I can go back, and pick some more from that shoot and edit more for social media. I do that all the time. But to begin with, I will probably do one per look if it's for my portfolio, and just so that shoot can go up, can go on social media, and then if you have time, you can go back and pick some more. If it's for an editorial, I would retouch two per look, which obviously makes it a little bit more time consuming. You don't have to, but I feel like it increases your chances because then you're giving the editor a choice. So when I then choose my two images per look, they're not going to be two images that look extremely similar to one another. Although they're the same look, I will try and choose two images where the angle is different, or maybe one is landscape, one is portrait, so that if that editor has space for, a 2-page spread, or wanted a close-up, or wanted a longer shot, they have the option of that.
Awesome. And what about the makeup and hair for this particular photo shoot? Maybe you can also show the other photos too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You mean in terms of looks, or how it was planned?
Well, maybe in terms of looks. Usually, in my experience, it takes a little bit longer for the base. And then, if everything is thought through and you've discussed everything with the team, it's usually not taking that long to switch between makeups. Is
Yeah,
it the same
no.
with you?
Yes, you're right. It is just sometimes where you may be stuck at a point, like for instance, this image here,
Mhm.
we have actually shot this after this. So you get to this makeup, and then you are having to go back to something more bare like this. So you have to obviously take off the whole of the eye and reapply. But there is always a reason why you do that, is because maybe the hair needed more product here and less here. And
Oh, Rosella frozen me. So I hope that she'll come back in just a minute or two. I will wait for her. And while we do that, I'm going to go over the rest of the questions that you have. Like, for example, the one from Caroline. She says, "Hi, hello there. Is it okay to contact model agencies for personal work? Do they pay or do you pay them?" So, this is a question that we discuss quite often in the Fashion Photography podcast. So, if you haven't heard it so far, this is the link that you can go to and take a look at the different episodes. So, in my experience, it is totally fine, Caroline, to go to an agency, a modeling agency, and ask away for models for personal work. So, if you're a very new photographer, what I would do in your case and in your situation would be to contact them first for some test work. That's how I'm going to call it. I'm going to make sure that whenever I start my conversation with them initially, I can tell them that they will receive photos for sure in exchange for their model. So what I would do is in the beginning, because they're probably going to give you only new models, you can do some test shoots for them and you can easily put those images into your social media, which is going to be great for you because you can be contacted by models. And in terms of money, if you're contacting an agency for test shoots and you're starting your relationship with them, you're probably not going to be paid. However, if you give them some good images, if they're happy with what you're doing, they're most likely going to be okay with you doing paid photo shoots, which means that they'll be calling you to show you the models that actually need testing, and they'll be like, well, okay, let's talk a bit more. It takes time because you've got to be a really good photographer in order, not a really, really good photographer, but a good photographer, in order for them to reach out to you to do their test shoots. However, if you are a paid photographer and do your test shoots, it's a little bit complicated. Let me explain. So, if you're a photographer and do paid tests for modeling agencies and you need a model for your personal project, you won't have to pay for them. However, they won't pay to you because it's like both sides win, which means that you're receiving good photos and their model is also receiving good photos that they can showcase to on their website as something that their models have done. And it usually looks like it's paid work for the model, which means it's done for a client. So it puts them in a higher category. So that's the thing. It's a bit complicated. However, you don't have to be afraid to reach out to a modeling agency. However, don't start straight away with the explanation that you want it for personal work. Go ahead and tell them that you want a model for test shooting. I think this is going to help. And I can see that Rossella is back with us, and I'm super happy about it. Awesome. Okay, so we were going over a question about modeling agencies. I think we were done with that. Let's see. Steve is having another question. I guess if you can have two models, one can be in makeup and the other one can shoot. Since we were on the topic of having a model on set and how much time it's gonna take you, and I completely agree with Steve, right? What do you think, Rossella?
I mean, so that sounds great, and obviously you will be able to optimize time, which is key on a shoot. There is a catch, and there is, of course, that the makeup artist will only be able to. She will always be in the makeup room, so she won't be there with you. So it depends on what you shoot. If it's a portrait where the makeup is super natural, it's just a little bit of like concealer or just a little bit of just natural hair. And then that's great. If it's fashion, probably the same. You might want the stylist there with you, and the makeup artist can be backstage. If it's beauty, I would probably feel safer to have the makeup artist there with me. But that said, I would try and keep an eye if she is busy, because sometimes you are running out of time and you do need to speed things up. We deal with this on a daily basis. So yes, it is possible. Just make sure you keep an eye on the makeup, or ask your assistant, if you have one, to just try and keep an eye on the lipstick. Is it fading, or the eyeliner or anything, is it smudging? So you make sure that you have not that extensive editing to do after, and you'll be thankful for that.
Absolutely. Very important part. Okay. Do you wanna go back to the photo shoot? You have to share your screen, however. And let me ask you that. I'm sure that people are very interested to know that, but both you and I, we are good talkers. So people are probably like, well, I wanted to ask this, and that's why I didn't, because you already answered. However, guys, if you have any questions, ask away in the comments. You can see that we are doing our best to answer deep and in details. And tell me what happened after you were done with the photo shoot, or if we're not there yet, just continue from whatever you think it's okay.
So what happened after is that obviously I had the daunting task of selecting the images, which is actually one of my favorite things to do. But there's always the point where you're like, oh, which one, this or that? And I would usually go to my partner and I would say, which one, this and that? And I keep on flicking between two, and they look so similar. And he looks at me like I'm crazy, because there's no difference between the two. But obviously we can see it. It could just be that, you see a little bit more of the earring in this one, or there's a bit more space up, above the head in this one, and they make a difference composition wise. So that's usually where I get lost. But I love the selection phase. And usually I have pretty clear ideas of what I want. What I struggle with is to usually pick the extra image. We said that I select one image per shoot for if it's my portfolio,
Yeah.
for my portfolio, but then I would select a second one per look for the magazine, and that's where I spend a little bit more time on usually, because it is not usually my favorite shot of the look. It is something that I have to actually sit down and look at the whole series and think, okay, what kind of shot I need here, and do I have it in this look or do I have it in another look? So that is needs a little bit more thought. It's not kind of that instinctive thing of, oh, I love this shot, yes, I'm going to select this. After that, I just I open all of the images that I've selected one next to the other, and I make sure that I have enough variety in there. So that's really important if it's for your portfolio, yes, but especially if it's for an editorial. So I want to make sure that I've got a more close-up one, and then maybe a landscape one, and maybe a longer shot, and that if I have an extra look, either I retouch that too, or if there's one that is too weak, I take that out. And then I start retouching.
You know what? I want to go back to the process of making the actual light setup, because I completely forgot about it.
Sure.
And people are probably wondering, and I'm so very sorry to go back, guys.
Yes.
Okay.
So the idea behind the lighting was to have this soft, kind of slightly colorful, but in general feminine and romantic lighting that would tie in really well with the romantic, aesthetic. I wanted the shoots to be very soft, very feminine, but visually really vibrant, basically.
Mhm.
So I love soft light, and because I usually photograph stunning women, it tends to work really well. Although soft lighting works well on anything and anybody. So I've gone for that soft light, and then I wanted to use a little bit of color, which I like to use very subtly most of the time, and I added a bounced off gel in my setup. And that was pretty much the idea that I had to begin with. But then, of course, on the day, you create the setup you have in mind, you test it on your assistant, but then once the model comes on set with the head down, with the styling on, you might have to tweak things a little bit. Maybe the lighting actually looks maybe too soft on them. Maybe you want something harsher, or maybe you need to change the angle to really suit their face best. Something like that.
We talk a lot about lighting with gels in our podcast that we did together. So I want to point the people that have questions towards lighting with gels to the podcast episode. You can find it again on photographypodcast.net. And let's go back to the retouching. There is another question from Francesco. Do you do your own retouching? I know the answer. Do you want to?
I do, and sometimes I think that I shouldn't, because it takes time. But I love retouching, and for me, it is my job isn't finished until I've retouched my images. For most of my projects, I feel this way, especially the ones that I have initiated. Maybe the ones that come from a client are can be a little bit different, but the ones that are just my idea, I really want to see them through to the end. So I normally shoot something already knowing what I want to do with the retouching. I have a really clear idea. So yes, I do retouch things myself, and I love retouching.
While we talk about retouching, do you want to share about your course? And here is the link for you guys in case you want to go ahead and click on it straight away. I'm going to also link it in the comments.
Thank you,
You
Virginia.
tell us a bit more about the course and what people can receive from it.
Sure. So This is a new retouching course that I've put together. It's available to do online, and it's a very comprehensive retouching course for beauty and portrait. It is made of 8 videos, and they are very in-depth videos where I guide you through the retouching of all the beauty elements from start to finish. So there is a video dedicated for eye retouching, another one dedicated for mouth, another one for skin and hair and nails, and it covers everything. And you also get access to 7 downloadable images, which are 2 extra images, and also part of the images that I retouch in the tutorial. So you can work, you can practice alongside me, or in your own time if you want to. And you get a downloadable PDF guide where every step that I do in the retouching video is summed up, and there's more before and afters. And I just really wanted to create a course, obviously sharing my way of editing, sharing my way of skin editing, hair editing in specific, but also there is 2 videos in the course which they're my favorites, where I retouch 2 beauty images from start to finish. So I cover color grading as well, and because I'm so passionate about it, I'm just so excited about these videos. So I just wanted to put it all in one place, so that hopefully people don't have to go and look at a million different tutorials on YouTube that use a million different techniques. I use very few techniques, and I use them over and over again in the course, so that by the end of it, you will know them by heart.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And let's go to the question, what is going on after the retouching? How do you approach a magazine?
Great question. So email. Okay, email is my favorite way. I know that you can call. I mean, most of the time you will work with magazines that are not necessarily local, so turning up is not really an option most of the time, especially nowadays. But emails can go a long way if you know how to structure them in a convincing and not spammy way. So making sure for once that you have a high quality content, and making sure that high quality content has been high quality retouched, and then putting it all in low res attachments to your email. So no links, no PDFs, no strange things that people need to spend a lot of time opening. I think that the best advice that I can give is to keep in mind that everybody's busy, but editors of big publications are very busy. And imagine how many emails they get, right? From old photographers and stylists and all sorts of people. So it has to be catchy, it has to be right to the point, it doesn't have to be fiddly, it has to be all the information they need, which is not that much. It needs to be right there. They just need to know more or less who you are without, knowing your life story, a link to your work, your name, that's it. And the shoot, the low-res images, and also explaining very briefly, literally one line, what the shoot is. Is it beauty? Is it fashion? What season it is? Because maybe by reading that, they already know, oh yes, I need something like that. Or, oh no, we've already closed this for the season. We've closed all the beauty issues for the season. So they just don't waste any time, digging deeper into your email, because they already know that the content won't be needed, or maybe they know that it will. And so they actually are motivated to go through your images. And then I would add the credits. So I would add the team credits, but also the wardrobe credits or the makeup credits, because a magazine is made of credits. So an editorial is made of credits. So if you have fantastic images, but you've used, dodgy makeup products from, the off-license, kind of Costco next door, that maybe that's not necessarily going to make it into high-end publication. Maybe it would. So, making sure that your credits are visible and that you've used really good brands, maybe even brands that are trending, or new products of brands, or new brands for clothes, or a new collection if you're shooting fashion. That is really a strength, and it will help you get published.
Absolutely. And I know from the Fashion Photography Podcast Facebook group, in case you want to join it and you're not part of it yet, it's called Fashion Photography Lovers. I know that people are asking who is the one that you are supposed to approach?
Well, it depends on the magazine. I would say it also depends on what contacts you can find, because it's not always easy to find contacts for all of the people working at the magazine. Sometimes you can find the editor-in-chief and you cannot find the beauty editor. Sometimes you have the fashion editor and you can't find anybody else. So I would say, obviously, if you are shooting beauty, aim for the beauty editor. But if you can't find the beauty editor, email by all means the editor, or even email the fashion editor and ask if they can point you to the right direction. You can say that, obviously, you have an editorial that is beauty, and ask them if they could please either share an email address with you or just forward it to their beauty editor in their team. And of course, if you're shooting fashion, you will go to the fashion editor instead.
Awesome. So, just to summarize that, contact whoever you can reach and
Very
be
much.
as brief as you can.
Absolutely.
I really think that the less time you waste for those people, the bigger chances you have.
Yes.
And Stiff over here is asking, how about magazines who pay publish, but they say they won't pay, but it would be but it would be publicity for you, who may publish. I'm sorry, my mistake. My dyslexia is calling. How about magazines who may publish, but say they won't pay you?
Yeah, that is a really good question. How much time have you got, Virginia?
I think most of the magazines nowadays are not really paying for
No, this is
publishing
the
your work.
thing. Yeah, it is a tricky thing. So it all depends on what kind of shoot it is. Is it commissioned or is it not? For me, this is key. I have worked when I was about to do a commissioned shoot for a smaller magazine, actually, that I really liked, though. And they didn't have a budget, and it was fine with me because I liked the idea. I had my mood board that I love to shoot, and I involved the the editor and the makeup artist, and I was really looking forward to it. And I put my studio forward and I put my team forward. But then they wanted to choose a model without me having a saying in it at all. And because the shoot wasn't paid, the expenses weren't covered either, I felt like that wasn't maybe fair, so I've come away from that. But for instance, I have had images that I've shot on a personal shoot basis that I've sent to magazines, and the magazines have told me we can run them, but we don't have a budget for the shoot. And then it's up to me. If the magazine, if it's a big publication, I may be happy with it still. If it's a shoot that anyway lives on my portfolio and I love it and I've done it for that reason. But you still come across magazines who pay for the work. So it really does depend on who you approach, but it depends on the process as well. Is it a commission? In that case, there should be at least a reimbursement for the expenses, or you should have all of the freedom in the world to create that shoot in exchange. It isn't fair, I feel like, to be put in the position where you're shooting something for the publication, and the publication have so much saying that you end up with something that you don't like as much, and plus you're not getting paid. So there needs to be, a gain for you somewhere, because it is so much time invested and also money from the photographer's side. So you have to consider that.
It's your profession. I mean, they should be serious about that. I completely agree with you. There are many magazines that won't pay for your work. However, I'm really going to think about the details. Like, for example, even if it's a big publication, if it's going to take, like, let's say 6 months for them to publish because they are already having their schedule, I'm probably going to pass. Sometimes with smaller magazines, they're ready to pay, but In my opinion, it's because they're not that aware of the industry. Because there is like an unspoken, it's not even a rule, it's just unspoken between the people in the industry. But whenever you're submitting, you're most likely not going to be paid. You're going to have the publicity. If you are commissioned, they're probably going to pay you, but it's going to be such a little amount that you should know that. Steve says sorry. Don't need no need for you to be sorry. It was my dyslexia, as I said. And in addition to that, you should never be sorry for being curious and asking questions.
Absolutely.
Okay, tell me, is there something about this photo shoot that we did not mention but you wanted to share?
I think we talked quite a lot about it. I feel like no, I feel like, to be honest, I've covered most things. I mean, it's just the thing that for me it was the one most worth talking about. It was the preparation before. So we did talk about it, all the mood boards, but also on the day, getting the clothes out and with the team there. And I have a picture. I can't show it because I didn't ask my assistant if it was okay to show it. But today, as I was getting these images ready on my desktop, I've come across this shot that I've taken of my assistant holding this dress up. She was holding it up like this in front of the colorama in the lighting. So we just wanted to see how things were coming together, how the lighting was working on the clothes and how the color of the backdrop was working with everything. So there is a lot of this kind of testing before you actually settle for something. So that for me is the most important actually part of the process.
Okay, time for final questions, you guys. And I just want to mention that people can definitely find you on your Instagram account, right?
Absolutely. I'm always there.
You can find it over here. And tell us more about your Instagram account, what we can see there. What about your feed? And what about your stories?
Sure. Well, my feed is a standard, let's say, beauty photography feed. I like to keep my feed only final work. On my feed, you can see the final image. I would write most of the time something insightful about the process, what happened during the shoot, something funny that happened. Recently, I shared a shoot that happened the day, and actually right at the point where in my old studio a water pipe burst. So we were just shooting in one room and a water pipe burst in the room just behind us. So all this water was gushing. We had to stop the shoot. And so, there's always something like this happening. And I share most of these things in my post. But in my stories, you will see a lot of my real life, I guess. I share behind the scenes. I share behind the scenes at home with my son and what it is to be a working mom, and lots of other craziness that goes on a daily basis.
That's so awesome. So now we know where you can find you. And I want to say big thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, definitely don't leave us, because you're going to find out who's going to be the next guest for the next week. However, Rossella, I really want to say thank you so much for being with us today. It was so amazing to have you, and you really shared some secrets about the industry with us. And I think it's so important for everyone to know them, to make sure that they're making that their steps are the right ones in the industry.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. And it was my pleasure and I had great fun. So thank you for having me.
Do you want to have just one final question from Francesco?
I'll always up for questions.
Oh, awesome. So one final question, and then I'm going to reveal who's going to be the next guest. Is it viable, once you're well established as a fashion photographer in good magazines, to approach emerging brands or designers asking them to pay you for submitting editorials to those magazines? Oh God, Francesco, this is an extended question.
Let me read it again. Is it viable once you're well established as a fashion photographer in good magazines to approach emerging brands or designers asking them to pay you for submitting editorials to those magazines? So I guess you're talking about advertorials in a way,
Yeah.
what are called advertorials in the industry. So maybe for those of you who don't know, is basically involving one main brand in the editorial, so that you create a shoot that looks editorial and all, you know, and all effects, but instead of featuring many different brands, really focuses on one brand, so really showcases one brand. And because it offers really good exposure and basically advertising to that brand, because obviously the name of that brand will be, you know, credited under each picture. It is something that usually photographers are paid for, and, you know, magazines are paid for. So it is. I mean, it's part of the job, isn't it? If you have shot fantastic editorials showcasing amazing makeup product or jewelry or and things like that, approaching clients is part of our job. So either you're approaching clients to maybe put yourself forward to shoot their next campaign or their next lookbook, or you can approach them to shoot the next advertorial for them instead. Or you can also get in touch with magazines for the same purpose and ask them, you know, tell them that you're a beauty photographer, you really focus on photographing makeup, and you've done this and this and this, and tell them if they have any advertorials, and they can keep you in mind that you're in this location, and, you know, if anything comes up.
I think this was a really important part, because whenever a magazine is already set for the idea of having an advertorial, they will be the one approaching you. However, if you're approaching brand with the idea that you can organize an advertorial shoot for them, you have to talk to the magazine first. And that is a really long process, because it depends on a magazine. Maybe this magazine is not even working with this brand, and it's going to be almost too impossible to put this advertorial into the magazine. Thank you so much, Rossella. It was lovely to have you. Even the final answer was super amazing, and I cannot wait to have you here again.
Thank you so much, Virginia. My pleasure.
Have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everyone.
And for those of you that are still here, I'm very, very excited, because I want to share with you some things. For example, if you've got any more questions, definitely go and take a look at our episode with Rossella. It's an amazing episode. We talk a lot about gels. I'm speaking so fast. Whoa, I'm even amazed. Okay, so we talk a lot about gels and how to use them in your work, which is, I believe, very important. And you can find it on the Fashion Photography Podcast feed over here. There are lots of episodes. We've got more than 340 episodes. You can all see them on our website, or if you prefer using a particular podcasting app, you can also see them there. The next thing that I wanted to share with you is that the Fashion Photography Podcast is completely made just by me and George. George is the producer of the podcast, and this is the only other person who is actually working on it, which means that George and I are the only people that are talking to guests, moving on with the schedule, and so on and so on. So it's kind of taking a lot of our time. So in case you want to become our patron, here is our Patreon account. God, I talk so damn fast. So I'm going to link it down below in the comments in case you want to become part of our Patreon society. And on top of that, something very important, something that I told you that you're going to receive as information at the very beginning of this podcast. And this is the name of our next guest, right? Is that what you want to see? Okay, the next guest will be, let me see, drum rolls. I don't have any sounds here, so unfortunately I cannot share with you the drum rolls, but our next guest would be Luke Wooden. We also have an episode with him in the Fashion Photography Podcast, and you can listen to it. And I cannot wait to see you again next Monday. If you have liked this episode, please don't forget to hit the like button and, of course, subscribe to the podcast. Share it with all of your friends and just tell everybody. Why not? Thank you guys so much for being with us today. It was lovely to have you. I'm really, really pleased that this time our communication was so amazing, and I'm getting better and better with the software. So cannot wait to do it next Monday. I think it's going to be awesome. Thank you.